Hello and welcome to the Circle Initiative 2020. My name is Eva Hamilton. I'm here to keep order and to try to help everybody to perform at the very top of their capacity. We're in the midst of Stockholm at Östermalm, and what you see here is Engelbrektskyrkan. You will have, and we will have, a most interesting meeting ahead of us. Here is the agenda. We will start with a fascinating case carried out by Electrolux in close cooperation with Stena Recycling. And at 11-ish, we'll wrap up with some of the most far-sighted leaders in Swedish business. Jacob Wallenberg, chairman of Investor, is one. You will also get to meet the sharpest experts in the Swedish business community, people who have dared to take a step forward and try new forms of collaboration. And that collaboration is really a key that will you understand during this seminar today. Here, at this very platform, the worlds of industry, academia, and politics meet. Of course, we must handle the pandemic. So this time, we're meeting online, and it does, however, mean that more people can take part than usual. You are more than 400 out there. It's a big audience. Welcome. And even if we can't meet physically, you will be given the opportunity to ask questions and interact with us during the course of the meeting. There will be short breaks just to stretch your legs. And this forum seeks to illustrate concrete projects, and we share our results. It's a day of transparency. This day conveys this true story, how to walk the talk. And now, let's get inspired.
This is a very special day. This morning, the College of Commissioners agreed on the European Green Deal.
So, our host today is Fredrik Pettersson, Managing Director at Stena Recycling. Was an impressive and kind of cute walrus.
Very much, yeah.
So, how would you like this event to be different from other seminars on environment and sustainability?
I think you touched upon it in your start here with the open, transparent collaboration between many companies, and also talking about concrete cases where we take step forward regarding circular issues together with our partners.
Because there's also always there can be a competitor, there can be you want to be first with your findings and not sharing, but this is not actually the tune of our times.
No, I think open, transparent collaboration is more the tune of the times.
Mm. So when you hear Ursula von der Leyen talk about the Green Deal, do you believe that the various European countries, we're talking of Poland and Yugoslavia, I mean all kinds of, that they are capable of fulfilling that ambition? Because it's a very ambitious ambition.
It's a very ambitious plan, and I think it's very important to take the ambitious plans and goals to set them in order to achieve something. Of course, in Europe, we have different starting points, but it's very important that we have the same goal in our journey.
So, Fredrik, could you give us this background of this event? This is not the first time, it's the second time, yes. And also set the stage for the day.
I will. Thank you, Eva. Warm welcome to Circle Initiative 2020. It's really a fact that we live in a changing world when it comes to climate and sustainability issues, not least related to materials. As meeting here today highlights its relevance also. Consumers have increased their sustainability expectation of the products they buy. They want products to be reused and recycled to a higher degree in the future. But they also want products made from recycled materials, as you can see in this picture. Due to this, manufacturing industry is demanding more and more recycled materials for their products. So part of our shared challenge is to secure the long-term supply of recycled raw materials to meet the right standards. Because, as you know, recycled raw materials are not produced by just ordering more specific parts and put them together in a smart and efficient way. Recycled raw materials, even with specific and tight analysis, are produced by generated waste. Waste generated from materials and products that have lived their life and are ready to be collected and transformed into new raw materials again. This means that we together must increase recyclability and circularity of the materials and products we're using. A growing market for more circular materials is crucial. This is a challenge that involves manufacturers, recyclers, legislators, and actually the whole society. This we must do together. I'm struck how quickly awareness has grown in many companies regarding the importance of materials, and how quickly we are progressing from linear solutions to circular solutions. For many companies, the use of raw material has a major or even a dominant effect on their climate footprint. Setting ambitions and goals for the material use will put this issue high on the company agenda. It also opened doors to completely new collaborations. And today, you will hear more about these type of collaborations. Last year, Electrolux made a very bold commitment, and I quote them: "Our goal next year will be to showcase a vacuum cleaner made from 100% recycled materials, and that should also be 100% recyclable." We accepted this challenge. For the past 12 months, skilled people from both Stena Recycling and Electrolux has worked together in a close and open collaboration to achieve this goal. You will hear more about this later today, so I'll leave it for now. Many innovative collaborations were presented at last year's Circular Initiative. Another one was the work carried out between Stena Recycling, ABB, and Combitech. Together we tested robot and vision technology in our electronic recycling in order to increase and improve the sorting of vacuum cleaners. We know that automation and digitalization are creating fantastic opportunities to handle materials and end-of-life products more efficient in the future. Today we'll hear about some of these opportunities thanks to digitalization. When companies like Electrolux set high, ambitious circular goals, it creates a need to explore new forms of collaborations, not least of all for us as a circular partner. We at Stena Recycling, we have a strong history, over 80 years, when collecting used products from industry and society and transforming them into a new life. During the last 8 years, we have invested hugely in new innovative processes in order to increase the recyclability and the recycling yield from complex products and wastes. We will continue to invest in new technologies that requires for circular solutions. But in order to make more materials and products circular again and use as new raw materials, we must also be smart from the start. And by we, this time, I mean all of us together. Here you see a picture of a product's life cycle. The demand and need for knowledge and experience regarding circularity is crucial. That's why we now launch a whole new operation regarding circular services. By that, we will make sure that our partners are smart from the start when important decisions are taken. Important decisions regarding design and material selection that will decide the recyclability and the sustainability performance of the products going forward. Because in 5, 20, or even 100 years' time, those products will need to be taken care of and recycled again and become new raw materials for new products. Take a look at this car. In 1998, I myself bought my first brand new car, Volvo S40. It's a model that was released just around that time. This means it was probably designed around 1995, 25 years ago. And today we are recycling them. Do you think they contain the same type of material as we use today and will use tomorrow in the cars? I don't think so. So what we design and manufacture today affects recycling for many years ahead. By committing and collaborating today, we will be able in the future to say, no resources are lost. Take a look at this graph. No, it is not the slope of a black run in the Alps. It shows the amount of electric batteries installed in vehicles over the coming 10 years. Things are moving really fast regarding electric batteries. Of course, this will lead to a mountain of end-of-life batteries. Electric batteries cause a significant environmental impact when they are produced. They are made from rare and valuable materials. A lifetime for a battery in a vehicle, how long is it? Well, I won't give you the answer, but it can certainly vary due to many factors. But is the total lifetime over then? Of course not. Let me show you a film about how we can extend the life of these batteries. It's a hot topic today, and will be so for a very long time to come.
Electric buses bring great environmental benefits to our cities. They're silent and emission-free, and when they're ready for recycling, almost all their materials can be reused, even the batteries. The batteries from a bus can store energy equivalent to 1 month's domestic power consumption for 2 people living in a flat. And storing energy is exactly what we do here in Gothenburg. We're building an energy storage plant using bus battery cells in a system for energy saving, making recycling and recovery part of a circular flow. The batteries are charged by roof-mounted solar panels. Direct sunshine is best, of course, but the panels also charge when the skies are overcast. The electricity that we store is then used for communal needs, such as utility rooms and outdoor lighting. If the batteries are fully charged and we have a surplus, we feed that extra power into the national grid. And at night, this storage system can both give and receive energy from the grid. We provide a buffer that can be quickly called upon during peak load times, avoiding the use of fossil fuel power to meet spikes in demand. With this system, we contribute to a cycle by reusing electric bus batteries, giving them a productive second life as a storage solution for solar energy. And in the future, when the batteries are completely dead, we recover the component metals, thus helping to reduce natural resource extraction. In this way, we reduce our climate impact and take another step towards circular energy use.
As you can see, it was only by collaborating closely together that we could reach our goal. I hope you will be inspired by everything you have taken part of today, what has been achieved so far, and also hope you will feel challenged to find out and curious to explore new circular collaborations after today's event. So once again, a warm welcome to Circular Initiative 2020.
Thank you, Fredrik. The whole thing here we saw about being a buffer is so important now when we are more and more depending on wind and solar panels that are not as reliable as the old parts of the electricity system. So thank you. You'll come back later on. But first now I will present our first panel. So welcome, Lena Westerholm. You are Head of Sustainable Affairs at ABB. Yes. Martin Hedström has a beautiful title. You're Head of Visions and Innovation at Electrolux. Yes. And Mattias Nilsson, Sales and Marketing Manager at Stena Recycling Sweden. So welcome, all of you. Lena, you have worked as head of sustainability for 10 years or so.
Yes.
And since 1 year, you're also responsible globally for sustainability in the area of robotics.
Yes.
Can you describe how sustainability has changed kind of from being something nice, taken care of by the marketing department, to something that affects all major decisions in ABB?
What has not changed during these years? I mean, first, sustainability is such a broad area. You know, we talk about health, safety, integrity, diversity, inclusion, and not at least the environmental.
Focus here on industrial.
On the industrial, I would say, if you go back 10 years, it was like an environmental department taking care of these topics, and it was not integrated at all in the same way as it is today. And it was very strong focus on mitigating risks. That was what it was all about. That does not give so much energy. And we didn't talk about innovations in the same way that you see that here, Fredrik raising today. So that is one big thing. I would say you don't talk about sustainability today without also talking about competitiveness in the same time. And another big change is that, you know, everybody are working with this in the company today. So it's really, really on the board's agenda, on the management team agenda. Everybody are involved, which also means that if you look at the business strategy and the sustainability strategy, they are interlinked in a completely different way. That's also a big change. Going back like 10 years, you have some environmental goals maybe floating around, but it's not at all like that today.
And now within a few weeks, you will present a new strategy for the coming 10 years.
Yes, we have a very exciting work going on in the company. So we will present our new sustainability strategy 2030 in November, and for sure circular economy will be a very heavy part of that work. And also here you can see the whole company is involved in making this strategy. And I mean, of course, one important trigger for us to taking these steps have been customers and their requirements, and you can also see how they have changed over these years.
So this has become core business.
Very
Mattias,
much.
you are right now building a new organization at Stena Recycling.
That's right.
Why?
Quite simply because there is a demand from this from our customers.
But what is the organization about?
The organization is about, we call it Stena Circular Consulting. We are now increasing our offer to the customers and our business model to include circularity as a service, and not just only focusing on the material once it ends up in our recycling facilities.
So you will actually help your customers to reduce their waste?
True, absolutely.
And wouldn't that be to kind of disrupt your own business?
Absolutely. We are actually disrupting our own business on many reasons. One of them being that if someone should disrupt Stena Recycling's business, it should be ourselves, of course. But also that we have so much to offer the customers. We are involved in the entire value chain with logistics, with materials, with the high-tech recycling facilities and so on. And now we decided to be smart from the start to increase the focus on design for recycling, for instance, being one, so that the products being produced are actually recyclable in the future, much like the Volvo Fredrik talked about.
And I mean, this is a totally new business area for Stena Recycling, I guess, being a consultant as well. Yeah. But how do you, I mean, are you invited to the companies, to your customers, to take part in their design process? Or?
Yeah. Absolutely. We have several different projects running, and we have done this for several years, but now we decided to scale it up and do it as a proper business area to actually expand it and scale it.
We'll meet one of your new consultants later on. Martin, 1 year ago, at the very first circular initiative here at John Eriksson-hallen in Stockholm at the time, Electrolux, where you work, gave a promise to develop a vacuum cleaner entirely made by recycled post-consumer plastics. We'll soon hear whether you managed to fulfill that promise, but tell us about the thinking behind. Why did you get yourself launched into this?
Well, first of all, it's kind of a natural next step for us because we have been working with sustainability as a key strategic focus over at least a couple of decades. And we have, for the last 10, 11 years, received the Dow Jones Sustainability Index as a company, but it has been more I would say, operations, logistics, manufacturing focused in the past, which was the paradigm in the industry. Now we are seeing that we heard Lena talk about it, and we heard Fredrik talk about it, that it actually is a demand from consumers today. A demand that we really need to up our ante when it comes to recyclability and circularity in our thinking. And that's why we, with Stena, formed a joint partnership with the objective to make circular and recycled materials, the market for that as well functioning as for virgin. When it comes to price, we heard about productivity. Exactly.
It's a big undertaking to create a market of recycling of plastics as well functioning as the market of metal, where there are global prices and so on.
We need partners to do it. We need to work together.
But when you then choose to make something very concrete, like a vacuum cleaner of recycled plastics, why did you? I mean, you could have started this new market in easily other ways.
First of all, the vacuum cleaner is a very visible product. It actually has a shell of plastics, which means that it has a design challenge to it as well. We have done it for a number of years in vacuum cleaners, not at all at the extent that we have done now with this team. But we needed to start somewhere. And for us, you said that I had vision and innovation in my title, and I do. Vision means that we need to point out where we're going in the future, and innovation means that we need to start small, test and learn, and that's why vacuum cleaner is a good starting point for us.
You could have picked a laundry machine, but you picked it. So stay on, because we'll move on and learn. Where's the camera? There or there? And learn what actually happened with that promise from Electrolux to build a vacuum cleaner totally made by recycled plastic. Here it is.
My friends used to tell me that life sucks, and then you die. But then Electrolux and Stena Recycling decided to make my life suck forever. Lucky me.
So, please, Louise Eriksson, circular design specialist and one of those consultants that Matthias just talked about at Stena Recycling, and Jens Leffler, sustainability lead well-being Electrolux. You have so long title, all of you. Tell us about this journey.
Yes, in this project, we wanted to show that it is possible to create a more sustainable product through circular thinking and circular design. We also wanted to create a good example of a cross-industry collaboration within a circular economy context. And we wanted to contribute, of course, to creating this well-functioning market for recycled plastics.
And as Martin said, this is extremely important for us at Electrolux. But for us, it was also important to get to know our products and follow our products through their entire life cycle and to understand what it takes for us to become more circular. So we set up to do this task, and we said that we would do a 100% recycled and 100% recyclable vacuum cleaner. And we had already, before we started this project, went to our suppliers and asked for more recycled material in our subcomponents. But we're by far not at 100% yet. So we started looking at actual old discarded vacuum cleaners, products that we collected from Stena's facility in Halmstad. And we took them and we tested them, and we saw that these are actually, a lot of them are fully functioning product still, and all of them have fully functioning components. So we started salvaging components from these cleaners, and together with recycled plastics from Stena, we built something.
Exactly. So we wanted to save and rescue some of the components from discarded vacuum cleaners, but we also wanted to produce components from post-consumer recycled plastics. And then we used the plastics coming out of the electronics recycling process that Stena has in Halmstad. Looks like this. This is the granulate that comes out of the process. And we collaborated with a partner or a
molder in Småland to produce the components for us. We wanted to use the material as it is when it comes out of the process, so without changing anything or adding anything to it. And what goes into the process is old electronic products. So it might very well be so that these components include parts of old vacuum cleaners.
Most likely. So, and then we took the plastics and together with the components and created a number of prototypes that we then sent to our testing facilities and did basically our end of line test. So what we do before we put the product on the market. And for example, we tested performance, we tested sound power, pulling the cord winder in and out 10,000 times, or blocking the cleaner off and on for 5 days. And we saw that we passed almost every test, and with small magnifications, we actually did pass all the tests. So we created something together that we could have then put on the market. So yeah, from this project, we had done something now that is 100% recycled material and reused components that is actually fully functioning, that works as a normal vacuum cleaner. And in this project, in this product, there's no virgin material at all. So that's actually pretty amazing, I would say, right?
Yeah, it looks very normal.
But it is normal. That's the thing. I mean, these are old used components and old used products that we grinded down, and we made a completely normal, fully functioning vacuum cleaner.
There is no difference in capacity?
None.
Would this be more expensive than a brand new one or a virgin one?
We are working on that process. I mean, yes and no. It is so much dependent on where we go from here in terms of what structures we put up, how we collaborate in the future, and also what materials you get in, so what the price of material becomes in the future.
And also how to scale up. I mean, we did this in a very small series. So
of course, yeah.
Yeah, we only have a few of these.
Yeah, this is, both of you, and I start with Luis, the challenges, I mean, this is a really happy outcome, but there have been challenges.
There have been challenges, yes. One thing is that it has been difficult to understand how to work with the post-consumer recycled materials when it comes to specifications and test standards and material requirements. So when we started this project in the beginning, we could see that Stena's material specification wasn't fully compatible with Electrolux material requirements.
Okay.
So our experts have been digging deep into that question, spent a lot of hours trying to understand how we can overcome those differences and align regarding
And
that.
then when you choose, for example, you have different colors here. This is gray and black, but I saw another one that you had some red spots in it and so on. I mean, to choose the colors, and you make it from recycled plastic, is that easy?
No, that's actually, the colors are from the reused components.
Yes.
So as of now, I mean, the recycled plastic is black or grayish. And that's where we are.
Stick to that.
Yeah, so that's what we have to stick to currently. I mean, the industry is evolving, and I know Stena has some advanced sorting processes to go towards more colored materials.
Okay.
But in terms of what is commercially available, black and gray is basically what we have today.
If there is red plastic at Stena, you have to use red plastic.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
That's interesting. Jens, from your point of view, the challenges during this process?
I mean, the big part is, I think this has been challenging, and it's with all these type of circular collaborations, it's about collaborating on many different levels, and you need to involve a lot of different partners. And in this collaboration, we have been collaborating from the very top of both companies to very down to the people sorting or screwing together and testing vacuum cleaners. So that has to work. But then what we found is that actually, once you get all the people to the table, the collaboration wasn't that hard. The challenge is to get the right people to the table, but the synergies are there for us to just, I mean, you see them right away, but...
Yeah, they're quite easy to understand. We have been listening here to Smart from the Start, and then a kind of and traditionally Stena has come in as the last part in the chain, receiving the discarded machine and then, recycle it, hopefully. Now you have a new role as consultant. What will you change? I mean...
It is important, I mean, to come into with this information and this knowledge already in the design phase. Studies show that 80% or up to 80% of a product's environmental impact is decided already on the drawing table. So we need the designers and the product developers to have the right information from start to make the right decisions, to be able to create products that are reusable and repairable and recyclable and that have a long life.
Yeah. And we see this now, and I mean, going forward from this project, we have done something that is amazing, but there's still so much left towards the circular economy. And there's a lot of knowledge gaps that we need to bridge now, and we need to learn more. So we are actually continuing this collaboration and also collaborating with Halmstad University to continue to test cleaners that come into Stena's facilities to learn more about what are they like at their end of life. And then, I mean, we set out to do something that was 100% recyclable. We have not done something that is 100% recyclable yet, but that is a work that continues, and that is super important for us at Electrolux, since we are in this to create a functioning market for recycled material.
Thank you, both of you, Jens Lefter och Nils Eriksson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to my panel. So, Martin, are you proud?
I am super proud, really.
One insight you got during this work was that important parts in the old discarded vacuum cleaners actually are fully functional.
Yes.
What are your conclusions?
I mean, they are many. I mean, obviously, you can look at this from a human behavior perspective, that we actually throw away things that are fully functional just because we have that kind of society right now. It's so easy in a linear society to just get new solutions for your everyday needs, because that's where we are working. Another conclusion is, are we designing our products according to real consumer behavior? Should we have less material and less, shall we say, weight and waste in the products just to fit the way they actually work with them?
Less quality.
Yeah, exactly. That's an extreme interpretation. I'm not saying we are going there. I think rather the opposite. How can we design products that actually live longer in consumers' homes? That is the step number one for me in circularity.
In Matthias Plastics, there is no standards, and there are 1,000 different recipes for plastics. And as I understand here, you can't mix them. I mean, you can't mix them.
That's true.
So then it's extremely challenging to recycle plastics. Would an EU directive be the answer? Or what is the answer of this lack of standardization?
I think there are many answers to that question. I think the legislators will do their thing to emphasize and push the use of recycled materials. We have seen legislation in the end-of-life vehicles, in the car production, that you should reach a certain level of percentage of recycling and so on. So they will do their job. But I think the real effort is in the consumer demand, of course. The demand is out there, and we need to create a marketplace and a way to get hold of recycled plastics. We have standards for virgin plastics, of course. They are quite, well scheduled standards. But for recycled materials, these are totally new when it comes to plastics. And here we really need to put this out in the market to create a marketplace, to create standards, and let the legislation also provide a way. The legislation cannot be tougher for recycled material.
And it is today,
virgin.
isn't it?
I think right of today, I'm not sure, but the trends are that I've seen from reports that recycled materials are really being narrowed down.
But there are standards for metals.
Yes,
how to define them. Yeah,
yes,
okay.
absolutely. And metals and iron, they are traded on all over the world at exchanges and trading and rates and so on. But plastics, still not yet.
We have got a question from somebody in the audience, and Pontus will phrase it for us.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a question that many are interested in. Will it be possible to buy this vacuum cleaner in a store?
Martin.
I guess that's to me. This one, not yet. But of course, we are doing this because we want in a very near future to have the learnings of this in our full vacuum cleaner range to start with, and then expanding further.
Lena, we were talking about the lack of common standards. And you, I mean, ABB is a global company. Yes. How do you define the different needs, or how do you define the standards when you have to deal with Asia, Africa, Europe, and so on?
This whole area is a mess, I would say. If you go back 20 years, we worked with life cycle assessment and we developed environmental product declarations for the motors, for the robots, etc. But the customers didn't ask for it. Today, it's opposite. Different customers around the world are asking us to present the data for the products in different ways. So it's just an administrative burden, not leading to better environment. So this is really, really a true challenge, I would say. We want to spend the time where it's actually leading to real improvements and not to the administrative burden. So
and this is a real obstacle that France is defining and asking for some kind of standard.
I would say so. You know,
doing something differently.
Yeah, Brazilian customer, French customer, Swedish customers. It's great that they are asking for this, but for a customer, to us, Stena or Electrolux, there's no use getting a product declaration unless they can compare with the competitors' product declarations. So we really, really are asking for this to be standardized.
Yeah. Matthias, is there, I mean, we were talking about recycled plastics here. Is there demand for it? And who is asking for it?
Recycled plastic, absolutely. I think demand is huge. And when you see in, business to consumer, the consumer are asking for sustainable products. And then the material is something that they really can recognize. If I recycle this, maybe it will end up as a new product later on, and that drives the entire society today.
And you have Volvo Cars, you have IKEA. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
Martin, last question, and not too long. But I mean, you're also a global company, Electrolux, and you have to deal with different demands. And I guess the demand for recycled vacuum cleaners made by recycled plastic is not that high in Asia, for example. How do you adapt your marketing and your offering to all these different tastes, needs, and so on? When it comes to sustainable products.
Exactly. I mean, there is actually a prevailing or increasing awareness and demand in all parts of the world. It starts, of course, at different levels. And we cannot design a product with European criteria for a global world. But for sure, the recycled materials will be part of the content.
But I think water shortage is one thing that is...
If we do studies across the world, water and energy are topics that come up as top 3 of concerns all across the world. Actually, paradoxically, not in Sweden when it comes to water, because we believe we have that endlessly.
So you emphasize the standards of energy or water more in one country than in another, then you emphasize other things.
Yeah, we need to think as global as possible, and as regional as necessary. But that means that water and energy are always top of mind when we specify products, as is materials.
Thank you, dear panel. Now we'll go for a break, and during this break we'll present a poll. So if you want to answer the questions there, open your chat function, and I can help you to just... The first question would be something like, if you believe that... No, I don't find it. Here we go. The first question would be, let's look into the future. Do you think the availability of circular materials will cover demand? And you can answer yes, no, or I don't know. So now a break for like 3 minutes. Stretch your legs. Welcome back. Before the break, we were, at least I was, amazed by the story how a new vacuum cleaner can be produced totally by recycled plastics, and the collaboration between Stena Recycling and Electrolux. Now we will learn about 3 other projects aiming at securing valuable waste products for commercial use. We start with Stora Enso. This is a story how you can turn ash into concrete. And we'll meet with Annika Bresky, the CEO of Stora Enso, who will give us a first short overview.
Hello, everyone. I'm Annika Bresky, President and CEO at Stora Enso. We believe that the world needs materials that are renewable, fossil-free, and recyclable. A circular bioeconomy to combat global warming and to minimize waste. Global consumption is rapidly growing, but on a positive note, consumer awareness of eco-friendly materials and limited natural resources is rising, and regulation on circularity and sustainability is increasing. Companies and societies are increasingly choosing to replace fossil-based and other non-renewable materials with renewable and recyclable alternatives. This interest and demand for more sustainable products and solutions gives us energy and encourages us in developing new innovative materials made out of wood. And again, I want to stress that a true circular economy is only possible when the raw materials are also renewable, materials that can be renewed over and over again, like wood. To accelerate the development towards a circular bioeconomy, we need cooperation between companies throughout the value chain, with research institutes and universities. This circular initiative seminar is an excellent initiative and a forum for us to meet and discuss the future challenges. We need more and closer collaboration to meet the climate challenge. We have taken many steps on this journey. Some good examples are presented during the event today. And I think we have challenges, but also great opportunities ahead of us. I'm convinced that until next year's seminar, we will have more new circular innovations to present, especially made out of our fantastic raw material, the forest. Remember that the future grows in the forest.
So the future grows in the forest. Thank you, Annika Bresky, CEO of Stora Enso. Now to Noel Marin, Executive Vice President Sustainability at Stora Enso, who has spent an important part of his career to developing and commercializing ash into something very concrete.
Thank you, Eva. Good morning, everybody. Sorry I can't see you, but I'm very pleased that you're there. Today, I'd like to talk about a new product developed by the paper division of Stora Enso from its waste streams. It's called VersaLime, a material with cementitious and other properties naturally rich in minerals like calcium carbonate and silica. But before I introduce VersaLime, let me briefly explain how it sits within our wider ambition to be a major player in the circular bioeconomy. As Annika Bresky said in her introduction, to do this well, we need to work in partnership with actors in the value chain. And we need to do three things well. We've got to extend the value of products such as board used to make coffee cups and other consumer packaging. Our recent partnership with the Olympic Stadium in Helsinki is a good early example of this. The second thing is we need to ensure that circularity is designed in from the start. And thirdly, we've got to achieve zero waste in our production processes. Now, today in Stora Enso, we extract value from 98% of our waste by weight, and it generates 30 million euros in additional revenue each year. VersaLime is one of our recent additions to this portfolio. Our new circular economy roadmap will deliver our ambition, but only if we work together in value chains, some of which are highly complex. To make this happen, we need circular design, we need a solid business case, and we need clear communication about the societal benefits. So let's take a look at VersaLime. Please run the short video. have created this infinity loop to illustrate circularity in Stora Enso. Because Versalime is a byproduct from an existing process, it's a good example of how a side stream can create extra value, reduce waste, lower environmental impact, and reduce costs. Versalime comes from the 150 tons of fly ash generated every day in Stora Enso. Annually, this 55 kilotons of recovered minerals can help make other products more circular. Its properties make it an eco-friendly option in applications ranging from certain construction materials to mineral wool production. With its blend of recovered minerals, Versalime addresses several needs. It reduces the fossil carbon footprint of cementitious materials that are by their nature high in fossil CO2. And it can also increase the recycled content of the second most widely used material on the planet. In case you don't know, that's cement in the form of concrete. We believe that Versalime is competitively priced with virgin materials like Portland cement that are extracted from the earth and manufactured using energy-intensive and carbon-intensive processes. Last year, energy accounted for 9% of our variable costs at group level. 2/3 of our energy is self-generated, and over 80% comes from biomass waste streams in our mills that are high in calorific value but low in fossil carbon. And Versalime is the result of this integrated approach. With the help of others, we've developed several large volume end uses for Versalime, where it can substitute for more fossil carbon intensive materials, including lightweight blocks, as a cementitious additive to Portland cement, or as a soil stabilizer and binder in highway construction. In addition, our team in paper division, led by Elena Skeffer, faced some regulatory and marketplace challenges to get this far. They had to reclassify this waste stream as a product, and that's not a simple matter. It requires a material safety data sheet, and it must meet the requirements of the EU REACH directive. In addition, Versalime requires some customization depending on the customer and the application. And when we started, Stora Enso was not well known in the sectors where Versalime can offer benefits. So with the help of others, we had to build our profile and sector knowledge. And finally, incumbent suppliers with traditional materials are still well entrenched. Today, 2 of our paper mills in Sweden and in Germany can annually produce 55 kilotons of Versalime. Our mill in Belgium produces 60 kilotons per annum of a similar unbranded material that goes into blended cement and highway construction already. And across Stora Enso, we have circa 470 kilotons of byproducts with similar potential. That sounds like a big number, but it's actually not. To put this into perspective, the production capacity of the global cement sector is about 1.5 billion tons per annum. And it takes 2 tons of limestone to make 1 ton of cement. So if you do the maths, that requires the extraction of 3 billion tons per annum of limestone from the surface of the earth. So in conclusion, if we achieve our commercial ambition for Versalime, it will demonstrate that global industries like the cement sector can be made more circular by innovative companies like Stora Enso in partnership with research organizations, academia, and importantly, other companies in the value chain. Thank you.
So, from Stora Enso to an ash replacing cement to ABB and energy efficiency through predictive maintenance and recycling old motors. Welcome up, Ulf Hellström.
Thank you very much.
Business Area Manager for ABB Motion in Sweden. Your presentation is titled Closing the Loop for Electric Motors. So
yes.
Please take the stage.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's to this very important event. I'm honored and proud to be here. So ABB is a leading global technology company, and we really want to energize the transformation of society to a more productive and sustainable society. We have a history of more than 130 years. We are active in 100 countries, and we are about 110,000 employees. And our purpose, why we are in the business, can be summarized in three simple statements seen on the screen. And we want sustainability to be embedded in everything we do. We work intensively with our own operations to improve, but also helping our customers to improve their sustainability. And within the next few minutes, I'm going to give you an example on how we are helping our customers in the motion business area. And this will be focusing on energy efficiency, digitalization, and sustainability. First, it's clear that the energy demand or electricity demand will increase in the future. So in addition to produce more of green electricity, we also need to consume our electricity smarter, more sustainable and more efficiently. And much can be done already with existing technology. And we have one very relevant example, which is not very well known, and that is electrical motors. Electrical motors consume about 40% of the Swedish electricity consumption. So electrical motors are an integral part of your daily life. You can find it when you are doing your commute to your office, if you go by train. You can find it when you buy processed food, for producing food and packaging food when you buy it in your grocery store, for pumps providing fresh water to your household, etc. But we can also find it in many industrial applications, in the steel mills, in the mines, and in the pulp and paper mills. All in all, 40% of the energy consumption, equivalent to 51 terawatt hours per year. If we look at the industry only, 65% of the energy consumed in the industry are consumed by electrical motors, equivalent to 33 terawatt hours per year. If we could use these motors more efficiently, we can contribute to a more sustainable world by lowering the CO2 footprint in countries with a different energy mix than we have in Sweden, but also to help to attack the capacity problem we have in Sweden. So for a sustainable future, it is important to reduce the electricity consumption wherever it's possible. And using more efficient motors is an important part of the puzzle and can make a great impact. So what can be done? One good thing about electrical motors is the robustness and the long lifetime they have. The disadvantage of that is that we can find a huge installed base of old technology and low efficiency motors. By replacing those motors and frequency converters with efficient technology, we can reduce the energy consumption by 8%, equivalent to 4 terawatt hours. And this is enough to power charge 2.1 million electrical cars, assuming you're driving 12,000 kilometers a year, or equivalent to the production of 900 windmills. Due to this, a lot is also happening in terms of regulation by the authorities during the past 10 years, but also in the years to come. But technology has also advanced, which means that there is technology available today which can do much more than the regulations require. The development of digital technology has also enabled this. Before, it was expensive and difficult to measure whether a motor was correctly dimensioned or if we run them effectively or efficient. With our smart sensors, it's possible to monitor the status of the motors to, first of all, for predictive maintenance purposes, to avoid kind of costly maintenance stops, but also energy consumption can be calculated in a very cost-effective way, which means that you can identify opportunities for energy savings or energy efficiency improvements. So, energy efficiency is relevant for a sustainable society. Digitalization has made it easier and more cost-efficient to find the opportunities for this. What is now missing? In order to speed up the process and build a stronger case, we are proud to be working with Stena Recycling to add the circularity or the sustainability to this, meaning recycling of electrical motors, where we together have developed a strong process for circularity of electrical motors. This is how it works. The motors are equipped with smart sensors to identify the opportunities. Low efficiency motors are replaced with new technology, higher efficiency, and the old motors are recycled by Stena Recycling to ensure that they don't end up on the second market where the energy mix is worse and the environmental impact is worse. And there has been investments in the technology, in the process of separating the metals. The impact on transportation and logistics have been considered, and also the materials are reused now on the local market. And this means that the metals get a second life, which is the essence of circularity. And there are also additional benefits for the customers. I mean, they get high efficiency motors, which means that effectively their electricity bill will be lower. And they get also digital technology on their motors, which means that they can have they can see early warnings and kind of avoid costly unplanned stops. So this is a win-win situation. So we have signed together with Stena Recycling a long-term cooperation agreement to recycle the motors, and this collaboration is an important step towards circularity in the industry. And this has also great potential to release energy capacity within the industry. As much as 99% of the motor can be recycled, mainly iron, copper and steel. And this is made possible due to the investments made in the process, but also that ABB is the market leader in motors, which means that we get access to the motors, and Stena Recycling's leadership in recycling of different materials. Given the fact that there are 750 million motors on the worldwide market, and an average paper mill has 3,000 to 5,000 motors running 24 hours a day, this can make a huge impact for the environment. So together with Stena Recycling, we have had this in place since a year. We have discussed and talked about many of the industrial companies in Sweden with great interest. So as a summary, let's take a look at one of the examples with one of the collaboration we have in place together with SCA and their mill in Munksund.
So Munksund, that's where it happens.
Yes.
Well, thank you. It's interesting. There's only one question that's kind of troubling me. There must be a second-hand market for your motors. What if a company in, say, Tanzania buys it and that would also be to prolong its life cycle, and that's also a way of being sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good question. This is actually partly what's happening today. The problem is that the usage of the motor, meaning the electricity consumption, is a big part of the whole footprint, or CO2 footprint of a motor. So sending these motors to another country where the energy mix isn't that green as in Sweden.
It's gold-based.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the alternative of recycling is much better.
Okay, so better to skip the motor than using a bad polluting motor.
Yep.
Okay. Who is responsible then for the decision of discarding the motor? Is it ABB, is it Stena Recycling, or is it the end customer?
It's the customer. I mean, we help with our expertise with the analysis, the sensors, and taking in and out the motors, etc. But the decision is made by the customer, sure. And
based on the information from your sensors?
Exactly, okay. That is correct.
Thank you, Hellström.
Thank you very much.
So, about... So, about 98% of a motor can actually be recycled. That's what we learned. And if you manage to recycle aluminum, for example, that is a very good business. One of the challenges, though, is to define exactly what kind of metal does a motor consist of. Different kinds of alloys might make that quite difficult. So Lena Delbom is digital lead at ABB, and Jonny Larsson, head of strategy business. Here you come, Lena, digital head of ABB, och Jonny Larsson, head of strategy business and innovation at Combitech. You will teach us about sensor, about machine learning, and advanced mathematical methods, how to measure and standardize. Please.
Thank you. The collaboration between ABB, Combitech, and Stena Recycling focuses on getting more material to circulate using the latest technologies in automation and digitalization. We need to set a new standard for industrialized recycling in order to meet the increased requirements from end customers, and all this requires innovation. Together we have a unique chance to make this happen, and we have just started a new project together with the Swedish innovation agency Vinnova that runs over 3 years.
Yes, this is a fantastic opportunity. And this project has 3 top goals. 1, to increase the recycling rate for aluminium. 2, to sort out the different qualities of recycled aluminium in a better way so that recycled material can replace virgin material to a larger extent. And to make this happen, we need to know more about the composition of the recycled aluminium, alloys, etc., so that the customers know for sure that the recycled material meets their specification. And 3, to achieve all of this, we need a completely new set of tools, hence the need for a new digital standard for industrialized recycling.
Combitech will contribute with our knowledge and ability in the area of machine vision and AI, artificial intelligence. We believe that these technologies can be a very important components in a successful digital transformation of the recycling industry. In this project, we will focus on creating conditions for extended data collection and data analysis. There is an accelerating development in sensor technologies, and we will combine different techniques in order to find new innovative solutions that can be adapted for the aluminum recycling process. To be specific, one particular goal is to find a way to make accurate real-time measurements of weight in the process. This has proven to be a very challenging task using existing technologies like band scales, etc. We will therefore use an approach based on machine vision and AI. AI gives us the opportunity to integrate existing staff knowledge about material properties like composition, density, humidity, etc. One big challenge in all AI projects is the data collection. Accurate measurements and cyber-secure data sharing is essential to establish the necessary information about the material in all parts of the value chain.
Yes. And we want to create opportunities for Stena to optimize the process in a totally new way. And to do this, we need access to completely new measurement data, as Johnny described. We also need to connect and integrate the existing systems and equipment that actually controls the process today. And by doing this, we hope to create an environment where we can model the process using machine learning and AI, and also to create the algorithms needed to be able to optimize the process in the best possible way. And this is partly about increasing the general level of automation by making sure that the process can actually adjust and optimize itself. And it's partly about creating standardized decision support systems for operator interaction. Today, a lot of manual work is being done in the process, and it's dependent on the specific competence of individual operators. ABB is contributing with the infrastructure for this, and with decision support systems and systems for operator interaction, and also robotics. And the goal is to install a demonstrator at the actual Stena production site, a real-time information environment with integrated information flows for transparency and collaboration. At Stena, but also across the whole value chain, from suppliers to end users. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena and Johnny. It's nice to see the enthusiasm about this kind of very qualified technical standards and mathematical methods to measure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll try to wrap up this case with Matilde Johnson, and you are at Stena Recycling, project manager for this, and you're holding a jar.
So I brought a sample with me to illustrate the complexity of the materials we handle.
It smells.
It smells, and there are different things, hard to identify, as you can see. There are parts from cars, electronics. There are different types of native metals in here, but as you can see, it's very hard to identify.
And you have to know exactly what each little piece there consists of.
Exactly.
So is this what makes the project so challenging?
So, we process about 40 tons per hour of varying metal, incoming metal mixes like this every day, which is incredibly hard because it ends up in 30 different fractions and it goes fast. And it's being sorted, washed in a very complex process. However, complex is not digitally sophisticated enough to ensure it's perfectly pure fractions in the end. But with the help of ABB and Combitech in terms of data collection and analysis and innovative measuring methods, we're pretty sure that we will be able to raise the quality and guarantee like perfectly pure fractions.
What time horizon do we talk about?
Hopefully by next year we will at least have a proof of concept, but it'll take us a little bit. It's a 3-year project running.
So how does this project contribute to circularity?
So more refined fractions means higher recycling rates, and higher recycling rates contributes to, it's better off for the climate. It also raises the value of the recycled aluminium. Like for instance, if we succeed with this project, we will increase the production of aluminium by 3,500 tons yearly at our production site in Halmstad, and that's only at our plant. And that also is the equivalent of 45,000 tons CO2 per year in comparison to production of raw aluminium.
Yes. Big quantities and big money. And if you really, if you succeed in doing this, we know there is an increasing demand for aluminium with the electrical vehicles and so on. You need a light material. Will this cover up for that kind of increasing demand?
We are fairly sure that we will contribute with this increasing amount that we can save to the increase. We can match the increasing amount, the demand from the market. We're fairly sure, if we succeed.
If you succeed, what can we expect to see at the next Circular Initiative 2021?
Well, we will have installed the testing plant at the plant in Halmstad, where we will have developed the proof of concept using different innovative measuring methods. So we will be able to present a proof of concept, as well as we will continuously start to collect data to analysis and see how we can develop that even further.
So this is totally depending on this very close collaboration between the Combitech, Stena and ABB.
Yes, the knowledge from
and
us.
you hang around with this, Johnny and
yes.
Lena?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a continuously hard labor, but we're sure that we will succeed.
Thank you, Matilda Jansson, Stena Recycling. So time again for a break, but first I would just like to give you the answer on the question from the first poll. And the poll, then the first question was, let's look into the future. Do you think the availability of circular materials will cover demand? And around 30% of you think it will. 57%, 57.5 say no, it won't. And then 12.4 says we don't know. So, and there will be a new question on the new poll question coming up now during this break. So please look at that one, and we'll be back in a few minutes. So welcome back. You got a question about it takes about a ton of gold to make a wedding ring. How many wedding rings can a ton of recycled small electronic devices provide? And you answered nicely. And the right answer is actually 10 wedding rings is the product, the result of a ton of recycled small electronic devices. So it depends, I guess, a little bit how big the ring is, but 10 is the right answer. Now I'll welcome a new panel. We'll talk about sustainable finance to start with. And we have invited Christopher Flensburg, Head of Climate and Sustainable Finance at SEB. And actually, the very first person 15 years ago presenting the idea of green bonds to World Bank. So one can say that you're the father of the green bonds. Right, welcome. We have also, we recognize already Lena Westron, ABB, and Fredrik Pettersson, Stena Recycling. So welcome up. I'll start with you, Christopher. The companies, I mean, you are giving advices to big companies how to turn their process into sustainable processes, right?
I rather want to say that we're speaking to big companies in respect to how their processes on turning sustainable can be used to explain investors how they're contributing to a better and more robust society. So we help them to create a protocol to explain to the financial markets how well prepared they are for the future. The sustainability is coming from the companies and the engineers themselves.
And the financial market is listening and asking for this kind of information?
Yes, this is a quite interesting question, because normally capital is flowing where you have the highest risk-adjusted return, or where you expect to get the highest risk-adjusted return. And the quarterly economy have basically been putting the focus into the existing infrastructure, because it's so much cheaper to use the existing infrastructure than to go out and reshape a new economy, right? And now when we are realizing that the circular economy, that all the things where you can actually save resources are a much more efficient way of allocating capital and thereby create better returns, and being trained by engineers and companies in respect to how to understand that, investors are starting to reallocate capital. Yes, so there's a strong drive on that.
Then between the short time, I mean, the need to present a nice quarterly report, and the long time horizon when you have to, I mean, change the entire process.
There is a conflict as long as you don't know how to reprice the long-term values. At a second where you have an appreciation and understanding of the long-term values and can price those today, so you're basically looking at cash flows over the next 5 years, 10 years, and understand that has certainty that it's going to come, you can actually price it today, and you will price it today. So with the awareness and the education from the industries in respect to how that is happening, capital will change the flow.
Okay, so what difference does it then make when hardcore capitalists, I would say like BlackRock, comes out with very strict requirements when it comes to sustainability when they choose where to invest their money?
It doesn't start with BlackRock making the reallocation. It starts with BlackRock going in, identifying that there's actually the need to change the flow of capital because there's more value to be created. There's more efficiency to be created by understanding circular economy and climate constraints. And basically, the research around TCFD, the Task Force for Climate Financial Disclosure, and the protocol that have been created in kind of the way that you need to address climate concerns, but also when you talk about integration or segregation, which is the problem, integration, which is the solution. These kind of things are things which BlackRock are now putting into their due diligence protocol, and as a consequence of that, they're coming out supporting the TCFD and making much more strict questions. They're creating a new due diligence protocol, and what it means that is that when BlackRock does that, everybody else is looking and say, whoa,
exactly.
Are we missing out? And that means that this is not only about BlackRock, this is the financial society that's changing course.
It's just so hitting when BlackRock really is something that I identify with, true capitalistic values when they come along. So what are there major differences in the valuation between companies that has a good plan to sustainability and others who are kind of late to the party?
Yes, so I think the most severe change we saw there was when everybody suddenly realized that coal was running into problem, and you basically had a devaluation or a reduction of value of 80-90% of many companies involved in that sector.
Have you some kind of example?
It's just looking at the stock values of those companies. But today, most financial players are concerned when it comes to coal and especially new coal. So regulations and the alternatives that's coming up is basically showing that you're quite likely to lose your money. And if you invest your money there, and that means that you're not supposed, as a financial prudent advisor or player, you're not supposed to place your money there.
Nice logic of the free market, isn't it?
It is.
Lena Westerholm, we are talking about the logics of the free market. Is there a real demand from your customers for sustainable products from ABB? Can you see that?
Yes, I would say there is, and I would also say that sometimes you think that it's just the Nordic, customers that are asking for this, and of course, often the Nordic customers are well in advance. But you see this from all customers around the world, I would say. Yeah. So it's clear demand, and the requirements have changed from the customers. Today they want us to help them achieve their targets. It's not about, can you show an environmental policy or whatever. It's really to support the customers in achieving their targets.
And the target is very often very precise.
Very precise. It can be, a customer having an ambition to be climate neutral. How can we support that? But also on the products that we are delivering to the customers, they want to see. We heard about the motors earlier, and they want to, we have to show that we are increasing the performance, environmental performance of what we are delivering to the customers all the time. And this is really the driver. This is also what makes it so fun to be in our business.
But to make this less hunky-dory, happy, it sounds like we are almost there already. What is, if you make it more complicated, more complex, what are the problems then? When your customers come up with this kind of...
Yeah, first, we are all stuck in a linear thinking. This is not about, the marketing department changing or the R&D department. The whole company needs to change our linear mindset to the circular mindset, and that is one thing. And also, when you look at the products, we have focused a lot on, try to limit the use of hazardous material. We have to look at everything with these circular Googles, and so we have a lot to do. It might sound that we're well ahead, and we have started to embed this in a really good way, I think, but we have a lot to do. And this is also great, to be competitive going forward. We need to be also an attractive employer and keep the talents and be able to recruit. And the coming generations, and you see the students growing up today, they have this in a completely different way in their mindset. So I'm sure that will also...
And new competences, I guess, as well. Fredrik Pettersson, the same question to you as to Lena. Is there heavy demand or good demand for recycled plastics?
We see, since we are in the beginning of the transition from a linear solutions to a circular solution, and especially in the Nordic region, we are well ahead regarding collection of material, recycling material. But if we look a little bit wider, of course, we are in the very beginning of this transition. I think the demand is increasing day by day for circular raw materials.
Where do you see the demand coming from?
From everywhere, because they don't have the solution what material they need, but they need circular material. materials, they need circular solutions, because I think they start to realize that if we cannot prove to our customers that we are a circular or a sustainable company, we will not last forever. We will have...
Volvo Cars have been quite early asking for this, right? Yes. In what part of the car will they use the recycled plastics?
I'm not sure exactly about the details, because a Volvo today contains so many plastic components, but I'm sure they have very ambitious goals and targets for recycled plastic in their cars. I think it's a talk about...
Where you see it.
I don't know if you will see it, but maybe you will see it. A difference from where you will use it, the sensitivity of the, if it's in the engine room or if it's in the driver area. I don't know, but they have a very ambitious target. I think the key point is they have very ambitious targets. I talked to them in my starting presentation about Electrolux setting high ambitious and clear targets. I think that's a very good starting point.
Only I would also like to know, I mean, today only 10% of the plastic is recycled, right?
Yeah, something like that.
The rest is burned?
A lot of plastic today is burned, and I think that's where we are in the process. Day by day, we have to become better, and we have to be humble. We have not focused on these issues for a very long time, but we have a very good history of burning for energy and so on. But we have to move things higher up in the...
So it doesn't really matter when I go there to the deposit.
Of course it matters. Everything matters in this work. So we'll be taking step by step in the right direction.
If it's 10% recycled today, what is it within 5 years?
Much higher, I hope.
But much higher.
I can't mention a figure, but much higher. And there's a figure becomes higher when we take bold steps and do things together, collaborate, as we have seen many examples of today. Then we will take steps by step.
We have a question from the audience, and Pontus will tell us.
How can we multiply or enlarge this type of initiative to more markets and product categories?
Once again, how can we
multiply or enlarge this type of initiative to more markets and product categories?
Okay, and that question is, I guess, for Fredrik or Christopher?
I can start by saying, I think, first of all, it's a question of attitude. If we take the example of Electrolux Stena collaborating regarding the vacuum cleaner, it's an attitude that we want to solve this. We have experts in our both companies. We put them together, and as they said also, the major challenge was not to share experience and knowledge. The major challenge was to put the right people around the table, and then things start to happen directly. So I think
like
openness, tight collaboration will take this forward after setting ambitious and hard targets.
Christopher, short answer, same question.
So basically, I think it's about systematization and assuring the protocol. So at the second where we are assuring that this is a more efficient way of creating production, I think that it will by itself expand and take over markets. So I think it's about creating that systematization and sharing that knowledge.
Last question to all of you, and you choose who answers. We are in the midst of the COVID, and that is, will that be a stopper or a driver on the journey to sustainability? Christopher?
So we see a very high attention on employment. So sustainability is the main thing. It's also about social stability. So there will be a very strong focus on creating employment and social security. I think that will be the first priority. Though looking at long-term stability, you need to have jobs in 2 and 3 years as well. And that means that as a second layer in the re-employment after COVID, you're going to have the long-term perspective, which is about circular economy, which is about climate considerations, which is about how we use resources and deploy capital.
But there is a risk that the focus on employment will delay the focus on sustainability.
There would be made some shortcuts here and there. Unfortunately, I think there's no doubt about that.
Thank you, Christopher Flensburg from SEB, Lena Westerholm from ABB, och Fredrik Pettersson from Stena Recycling.
Thank you.
So, quick changes here. I have now the pleasure to introduce to you one of the leading academics in the field of management of digitalization. She's also an ocean tech professor, and she knows a lot about plastics getting disposed into the oceans. And here we are. Please welcome Robin Tayland.
Yes.
You're Professor at Chalmers, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
First, you'll give us a presentation, and then we'll talk a little bit.
Yep, great.
Okay,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
so much. This is absolutely fantastic to be here, to be able to share my research as well as my work that I'm doing as an impact entrepreneur. So what I'd very much like to do is take you on a little bit of a journey of my research and actually what I'm doing. If we think about the future, what we're talking about today is very much, what will the future look like? What degree of plastics will be recycled? What about the economy? What about how we live and work? We have so many questions, but what we know about the future is a very small piece. What we know we don't know is a little bit larger. Yes, we're struggling hard to solve COVID-19, etc. But what we don't know is so much huger. And this is our challenge, because we base so many of our decisions, our strategic decisions, based on the past. We've been trained how to think about the past, but very poorly trained to think about the future. And this is very much what I'm trying to work with. Now, clearly, the subject of today is very much this whole aspect of life cycle, of sustainability, of circular economy, moving from this linear model. But there's so many more challenges. It's not just about the environment. We also have many other trends that are influencing us. What I show you here is just a very simple framework to help you think about the future, the pastel, where each letter stands for a trend that's influencing our future. So it's not only environment, it's not only digitalization, it's many more things. And if we look into the future, we might see a world where we see a lot of protectionism, a global power struggle. But if we're to solve these challenges, I think exactly what we're hearing today is about collaboration, working across borders, building networks, testing, experimenting. This will help us solve our challenges. One of the things that we need to do is very much also test our basic assumptions about how value is created. This is not that long ago. Think about it. It's just a few hundred years that we've been living in cities. Prior to the first Industrial Revolution, this is the way we lived and worked. Small communities, self-sustaining ourselves. But then, very much with the first Industrial Revolution, moving from the country into cities. Much of the way we think about value creation comes from this time when we're leaving our home, going to work, have an employer, have a paycheck, and this is the way we create value. This is the way we live and sustain ourselves. Think about the next phase, though. Multinational corporations. How long have we had the ones that we've been seeing today? Electrolux, ABB. We think about H&M, IKEA. Well, business-to-business firms have really only been around since the end of the 1800s. B2C, or business-to-consumer, such as H&M and IKEA, really only after the Second World War. So who's to say that these forms of value creation will continue with us as we move into a platform-based economy with large platforms such as Alibaba, Amazon, becoming an interface with the end consumer? What will happen with competition as we move forward? What will happen with jobs also? We've always moved into the cities. People talk about urbanization. We have this trend. That's where the jobs are. I question that. One of the things about scenario thinking, about thinking into the future, is challenging your basic assumptions. And I would challenge, just because we've seen a trend of urbanization, will that continue? Think about all these trends. Think about how COVID-19 is also propelling us into a field of automation, where many jobs, people are saying, well, I don't want to deal with anybody in a store. I'd rather order it online. Or what about this lights out pizza factory or pizza restaurant where I don't even have to interact with the person? Everything's done. Pizza's made by an ABB robot. It's delivered home to me on an autonomous vehicle. I don't meet anyone. What will happen with the jobs? Well, throughout time, we always create more jobs. But where will these be? A study very much is looking at tomorrow's jobs has seen that, well, many of them, you don't need to be physically there. And that makes me question, will people move to cities where perhaps we might see rising crime rates or pollution is one big issue? Maybe people would prefer to live in smaller communities. Might we see a return in a way to where we were a few hundred years ago with self-sustaining communities? Clearly, we have no idea. It's impossible to predict the future, isn't it? Just take a step back yourself and imagine, what might life look like in the year 2030? What will you be doing? What skills will you need? How will you sustain yourself? It's a good thing to do, but it's hard. Challenge yourself. And this is very much what I've been trying to do. And I jumped into something completely different because I have no idea, but I have to at least experiment and learn. These self-sustaining villages, potentially, that might grow, will be very dependent on new technologies. So, for example, we can create a circular economy related to food, where we have on-land shrimp factories reusing spillover heat, where we reuse the shrimp shells for plastic bags. Who's to say? But I think what's really important is taking a step back and trying to say, if I were to start over again, what would I do? Would I try to do what I'm already doing a little bit better, a little bit faster, a little bit cheaper? Or what about exploring? What about the other end? What could I do differently? Are there new networks I could meet? Are there new technologies I could explore? How can I create value for my end customer? How can I create value in my organization? How can I create value for my community? Thinking differently. Many times you really have to break out. I study social networks, and one of the main principles is birds of a feather, they flock together. In Swedish we say, lika barn leka bäst. But what happens then? We surround ourselves with people who have the same mental models, the same values, and we ensure ourselves this is the way the future will be. But in Swedish you say, olika barn leka ännu bättre. So it's good to build bridges to diverse networks. This gives you signals from the periphery saying, we might be going towards a different future, or here's another opportunity. Well, this actually, I wove into a story. I started surfing a few years, or at least trying to surf a few years ago. And I ended up in Peniche, Portugal. It's about 1 hour north of Lisbon. And when I was there, I started becoming very curious, because I think one of the keys to success too is being curious. If you are curious, you engage with others, you ask questions, you learn new things, you explore. So I was curious, if we think about digitalization, if we think about all the efforts going into new technologies, smart cities, what happens with people who live in coastal communities, who live in rural areas? Will we see an increasing digital divide? Or is there a way we can reduce that? So the more I learned about the people of Peniche and others living in coastal communities, in fact, there's billions of people living in coastal communities around the world, the more I realized that their whole source of sustainability, of life, of the way they create value, the way they support themselves, is disappearing. I didn't know much at all about the ocean a few years ago, other than it was a great place to go and surf. The more I learned, the more I realized that the ocean really is in a critical state. There are tons of plastic going into the ocean every year. And in fact, only about 1 or 2% is floating. These are the size of the state of Texas, of England, etc. We have plastic at the bottom, the deepest abysses. In fact, something about 92% of plastic is actually at the bottom of the ocean. So what can we do? Circular economy for me is so much more than thinking about a new product and creating this, life cycle assessment and making sure that we recycle materials. It goes to the heart of value creation, where coastal communities and rural communities and communities in general are really the lifeblood of ensuring that we can create a sustainable future. So we started with this statement: how might we empower coastal communities to take back their future? We have so many new technologies. I mean, you've seen some of them, talked about them today. But how can we actually build on existing resources while thinking about a circular model? So a couple years ago, we started a company called Ocean Tech Hub, and the whole idea was, what if we were to start anew? We have technologies, we have fishermen. Is there something we could do? Well, what are our hugest challenges? One is ocean plastic. Other is self-sufficiency in these communities, employment, new jobs, new forms of ways to sustain yourselves. So we said, well, circular economy should be based on ocean litter. But we don't know where it is. Could we use artificial intelligence and drones to actually facilitate finding that? But once we find it, what do we do with it? How do we find it? And so we work very much, we're thinking about, could we work with the local fishermen to actually facilitate looking for this as well, repurposing their vessels, so that we can locate the litter, retract it, but then what? Ocean plastic is a huge challenge to be recycled. It's brittle, you don't know how long it's been out there, it absorbs heavy metals and pollutants, et cetera, et cetera. It's not easy to recycle. But one of the things we are thinking is we have new production methods, such as 3D printing, additive layer manufacturing. We also have a whole new material called graphene. Could we not use graphene together with plastics to create a structure, a material that is strong, that could be used in new purposes? Well, then we said, well, what is a need that we have in these local communities? Local transportation is very, very poor. Why? Because most of these communities, now that there's no more fish, live off of tourism. Well, tourism, that means you have a lot of people during a concentrated few weeks, and then what during the rest of the year? Do you have enough mass, critical mass, to actually have a public transportation system? So we said, what about if we created a 3D printed self-driving pod? Now, everything I show you here already exists. So when we were putting this model together a couple years ago, this was just a vision, an idea that we had. We also said, what about creating the circular economy aspect? Could we put this on the blockchain somehow? What if we had a tourist come in and pay a local currency, a crypto coin, to take this pod? Well, because of the blockchain, you can trace back through to the fishermen who were involved in the process, retrieving the litter from the ocean. Then they could have some form of feedback. Or the elderly ladies who've lost their husbands at sea because it's such a hard work. Perhaps they have an Airbnb or some type of lodging with solar panels on the roof that charges this pod, so that she also gets credits and could take this for free. This was all just a crazy idea a couple years ago. Really, only 2 years ago we started our company. But it's amazing if you can create this vision, how you attract talent.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
And you will come back in the panel within short. But first we'll have a break. And during the break, there is a third question for you to answer if you want to. And that question is, will increased use of circular materials be essential for your profitability in coming years? And you can answer yes, no, or I don't know. See you after the break in a few minutes. Welcome back to this last part of the seminar. We have a nice panel, an intelligent panel here. And we have two newcomers. We have Jakob Wallenberg, Chairman of Investor. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Ola Nilsson, the Chief Experience Officer at Electrolux. Welcome to you as well. And then we have Fredrik Pettersson. You know him already. And we have Robin that we've just seen. Robin, you're sitting on an odd chair.
Yeah, funny chair, isn't it, huh? What could this chair be made out of? Well, I ask you out there, what do you think it could be made out of? It's made out of ocean plastic, and it's made by an entrepreneur in Sweden, a company called Skulptur, which is challenging the boundaries related to furniture manufacturing. So taking 3D printing filament made out of ocean plastic, not this, a little bit larger, and then 3D printing. It's actually printed this way in a 90-degree angle and layer upon layer upon layer with a very large ABB robot. So it's amazing, which then you're putting on a production, like an assembly belt.
We tie everything together here.
Yes.
ABB robot. I mean,
Yes.
we've been talking to the good. Okay, so I'll start with you, Jakob. You're chairman of Investor, you're also in the board of ABB, so you have double interests here. A year ago, you were the keynote speaker at the very first Circular Initiative conference. What is the potential of this forum? What makes it special?
I think the important thing is generating as much engagement as possible in this question, be it recycling as a niche or be it sustainability at a higher level. I think one of society's most significant challenges is that we're all talking about Paris, we're all talking about flygskam or whatnot, but to actually move from philosophy to practicalities and really make a change is a huge challenge for us as individuals and for companies, because it's so opaque. It's difficult to define. It's difficult to understand what does not increasing 2 degrees centigrade, what does it really mean? What does it mean for me? And I think by having meetings of this nature, exchanges and learning from each other, it really fosters knowledge and it drives us. It's a bit like digitalization. 5 years ago, we all started to talk about it. Today, we're much deeper into it.
It's a hygiene factor today.
Exactly. And I hope we're going to see the same development when it comes to sustainability or recycling for that matter.
You have held different board positions for many, many years. And you have seen the transformation from sustainability being something that was kind of, aside, not core business at all, to today when it really is core business. Could you elaborate or describe its process? What have you seen?
And this is really, it's new. I mean, this has not been, it's not been in the core for a long time at all. If I look at sort of an international basis, when I was in Davos almost a year ago in January of this year, that was the first time when the American companies started to talk about sustainability. They did not before. No. It was a market shift, and the World Economic Forum itself had done a lot to promote that with the Americans. So it was there. A year before, it was not there. European companies, a few years before. So we're really new, and that's my whole point. We are newcomers, we're learning, and now it's part of any European company's DNA. It has to be there in the annual report, and you have to have an active attitude.
What about the Asian companies? What do you hear from them?
Sorry, from?
Asian companies.
Well, look at China that came out with completely new environmental rules just the other week. I think it's. I don't hear a lot from Asian companies as such, but I know they are as engaged as we are.
Of other reasons, perhaps. I mean, I was talking to Frederick from SEB, and he said domestic reasons in order to keep the population calm.
That, but I've been engaged in China for many, many years, and meeting with leaders in the city of Shanghai, for instance. The leaders of Shanghai, when they have interviews by media, they are pushed very hard on sustainability and have been for quite a while. And I think that drives the new rules. It's not only foreigners not willing to move to Beijing today. That happens to go for Chinese nationals as well. They don't want to get ill. And so it's a reality to them as well.
We also seen you, and this day has been a proof of that, new collaborations coming up. Do you see them as well in the boardroom?
Yes, I do. No,
and why?
Well, we're only humans, right? We develop with times, we develop with trends, and.
But is it a question that you need to partner because you can't develop a product fast enough without the knowledge of the other partner, or something like that?
I think it's maybe more that. Here we're maybe not competing with each other. There is an overriding objective, society, and there is a real value learning from each other. In due course, I'm sure we'll compete in particular areas, but today it's so early that the value of collaborating with others is significant.
So Ola Nilsson, Chief Experience Officer at Electrolux. New collaborations, yes, but also new business models are coming up as a result of this work with sustainability. For instance, I mean, I know you're really turning this in your head about new business models for Electrolux. Can you mention some?
Yeah, I think I'm personally very passionate about this because I think there is so much to learn to see new trends, like the subscription model that we discussed. Today, it's
the subscription. You rent your vacuum cleaner, or your
robotic vacuum cleaners, actually, and because today it's not necessarily so that people need to own a car or an electrical scooter out in the city, right? So what if we could monetize the actual usage? But there is, of course, a sustainability angle to it as well, because if we then design for refurbishment and are able to bring them back, tweak them and send them out again, of course, that has a sustainability.
But that would indicate that Electrolux would start a totally new kind of service, maintenance, repair, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Both linked to, I mean, the opportunities in connected appliances, where, of course, if we are connected, we can understand not only the usage, but also how, so to say, the appliance is doing. So we could actually predict then when we should send out a serviceman, for instance. But the whole service area, I think, linked to also having an ongoing relationship with our consumers is a renewed interest for us.
But there is also an asset, a valuable asset, to get the data of the consumers, I guess.
For sure.
And how could you use those data?
Well, I think our industry has for too long been focusing only on, so to say, moving products, selling them, and then we forget about it, kind of thing. Now, of course, we see the incredible value we have within the ownership phase to really create a long-lasting and relevant relationship with our consumers.
I know that Amazon and H&M, for example, like IKEA as well, they are now starting some kind of, they take back their own old products, some kind of collection. Are you intending to do the same thing at Electrolux?
Yeah, well, you saw earlier today, right, with a recycled vacuum cleaner here together with Stena, right? That's one pilot, and we need collaboration. Back to the point here about partnerships. I mean, it is fairly new, and we can't do this alone because it affects so many other parts of the value chain. So we need to learn together.
And one of the partners that would then be Stena Recycling, right? Talking about new business models, you are also heading for new business models. And so until now you have been recycling, and then you've been selling the recycled material. Now you have bigger plans.
Yes, as you talked before with our sales director, Matthias, we must come in much sooner in the product process, already on the design phase, when we can be a partner to decide whether it's recyclable or not, how we can separate materials in the most efficient way to use them once again as a new raw material. So that business is moving quite fast now.
And batteries?
Batteries, that's another area.
You're claiming to be one of the big players in recycling batteries.
Yeah, of course, we've heard Robin talking about the effect you have when you produce batteries from start. And this means that we need to make sure the battery's life cycle can be as long as possible, and also make sure that they can be recycled in an efficient and a good way when it's time for that.
Is that the routines to take care of batteries? Are they similar to the routines that you've developed for metal?
Some parts can be similar, some parts not.
So it's a new product line.
Batteries is such a new product, and as you saw in the graph before, we don't have too many batteries available today because they're still started to be used in the electrical vehicles.
In 8 or 10 years' time.
Yeah. So
Robin, we're talking about market rationales. The fact that the oil price is so low now, how will that affect the outcome of plastics and also recycling of plastics?
This is a real challenge because many producers are looking at the overall cost of a good to produce. And when you stand there and they compare a virgin plastic where they know the qualities, if they have a reliable supply, the price is cheap, and they compare it to, say, an ocean plastic or recycled plastic, which has poorer properties, which you might not be able to have a reliable supply. What will they choose at the end of the day if it's about efficiency? But that's why it comes back, is exactly creating a closer collaboration with your consumers, better understanding their usage, and seeing to what degree will they be accepting of switching out this virgin plastic for something else. So I think this is, yes, I've been in many discussions just within the past weeks exactly on this issue, where speaking with the producers like, yeah, but virgin plastic, it's so cheap, and it's, I don't have time for this. And it's so, frustrating, because how will we take that step forward? So we have to create more awareness from the consumer side so that we can pull that through, that it's not okay to use these virgin materials until we find a way of, when we talk about virgin, what is virgin? Because you're saying, and working with recycling materials, the ability to recycle materials and create virgin properties is getting better and better and better all the time. So I think it's also said something about that. We even have other sources such as algae, which are coming in, biomass plastic. So it's a huge challenge. So it's not just, the virgin, it's also thinking about the whole chain and really pulling through this, that we need this sustainable whole life cycle assessment of a product.
Christopher Flensburg from SEB, who is into sustainable finance, he mentioned beforehand that there is a commercial rationale now to head towards sustainability, and I would like you to elaborate on that. Why is it a future-proof for a company to really heavily go into this? What makes the shareholder value? Give us more knowledge.
I think it's fairly straightforward. We saw it's all about the ultimate consumer. We saw Nike accused of child labor. You saw Shell trying to sink an oil rig outside of South Africa. This is 15, 20 years ago. But the consequences of moving down that path were dramatic. Both companies were on the verge of going bankrupt. And I think the world learned something, that the consumer has an enormous power. And fast forward to today, we're seeing that consumers are engaged. To your point, you want to see the whole chain, you want to see suppliers that have a conscience and are developing products that sort of adapt to our needs, and we all see that. So either you're going to address the ultimate consumer, or they will vote with their feet, and then you have a problem. And that might sound extremely hard-nosed in a sense, but I think it also comes to our employees. They also expect a company to behave accordingly, to have a conscience, to be part of society. And I think it comes back. It comes to, we saw, you had the picture 100 years ago when we lived in the countryside and small communities, and then we've urbanized ourselves. I think we're sort of catching up with ourselves now, that we have to look at things in a larger context. And so you have so many different angles on this question, but now it's here and we're all addressing it. And if you don't address it, you run a serious risk of paying a price.
Do I remember rightly, are you on the board of Coca-Cola?
I was.
You were. Was that an issue there? If you were talking about one of the largest consumer companies in the world, with the direct contact with their customers.
Yeah, no, it was to them, Coca-Cola is a very professional company. They know they're consuming a lot of water. They know they're distributing sugar. They're addressing all of these issues. There are angles to this. It's okay. It's okay. Sometimes I'd like to buy something with sugar in. However, it's also important that Coca-Cola, tells you how much sugar is there, so you can make an educated decision.
Would you say it's important if a company like Coca-Cola is really on their toes? Would you say they are?
Today they are. We're all learning.
Yeah, but
But 25 years ago, it was a
but nobody expects that. But today they are.
definitely, it's a survival question. In the United States, they're forbidding large servings, and the whole obesity question, which is so obvious, not the least in the United States, is driving them. It's one of the questions I was heavily engaged in the company. But the water question is also, it's hugely important when you sell in India, for instance, where there's a lack of water, etc.
But we're putting a lot of trust in the consumers and that they are voting with their feet. I mean, that might be, I mean, that's the strongest driver. But suppose the customers now getting poorer and poorer because there is a COVID. And I mean, then first priority is not to vote or to buy the might be more expensive sustainable product, but you buy the cheaper product. Please, who wants to?
I think what we have seen, though, is that credible brands and strong brands survive also now in the COVID period, and more interest in that. So, to be honest, yes, initially we saw an initial downturn on the sustainability piece on the priority list, so to say. But it's for sure there. And back to
you have seen that already?
Yeah. Well,
how do you measure it?
No, but if you use Google Analytics, for instance, and see how people search, we can see their interest, of course. And but again, it's back to what Jacob said here, that, I mean, not only is it a survival issue, so to say, for regulations and so, but if we're going to be credible, and especially for us here, you know, Swedish company, we can stand for something when it comes to sustainability, and there's a tremendous power in that, in building a relevant and stronger brand, especially for the younger generations, I would say.
Robin, you raised your hand.
Yes, I think one of the things is to think about consumption. I mean, 30% of most goods are never even bought or never even sold. So I think it's also very much thinking about the whole chain. How can we produce and actually predict, say, needs in a much better way? But also thinking about how can we facilitate much longer lives. I mean, this is what you're getting in as well, and not producing for, you know, this ship or cost, you know, you buy and you throw it away. So how can we produce something that has a longer lifetime, or that then can be shared and used by someone else? So I think it's also about coming up, trying to think of new revenue models or new circular economy models where we can facilitate the reuse, the sharing of items as well, and not just always going and buy something new, which I think this is very much stuck here. I have to go and buy something new. But I think also you're seeing very much in this next generation coming along saying, well, you know, who can I get it from? How can I borrow it? How can I exchange? Now I have this great Facebook group, so we can just, you know, share with each other. And I've seen this also living in small communities, the island of Trondheim, where something comes to the island and it never leaves. So they'll put it out and somebody can pick it up. So items are really used until the very end. So I think it's also about trying to facilitate this transaction or this change in consumer behavior. But this is a challenge if you're used to very much, you know, as you're saying, production for consumption.
Jacob, how do you, in your companies and the boards and what the information you get, I guess, daily about this, how do you measure the impacts of the COVID now on economy, on your company, but also when it comes to the customers' demand for sustainable products?
Yeah, on the latter, I have a difficult time seeing real data on that. But generally speaking, my feeling is we spent the entire spring trying to get our arms around COVID, and it was the only thing we focused on for the obvious reasons. My feeling is that post-summer, we all packaged COVID. We have it there on our table, right? We look at it, and we believe we understand it. And then we're going back to where we were 6 months ago, and we start to deal with all the normal processes and so on. So I think we've seen going back to the old, so to speak, and now we're dealing more with sustainability and other things. But one of the things that we're talking about is the lack of know-how, the lack of KPIs, the lack of facts, so that we can start to take better educated decisions, like you pointed to at Electrolux. Electrolux. We need a lot more. But maybe the point is this is so early. We are in a learning stage, and that's why we can learn from each other.
It's amazing how the stocks and the prices, the market prices, are still on record high levels, as if COVID didn't exist.
Oh, but that's an anomaly.
Yeah, that's another.
If money is for free, then money is looking for a place, and stocks is better than.
And there is
nothing.
an enormous lot of money in the market right now.
It's dramatic,
yeah.
and but this is not. It's not sustainable. This will of course change over time, but it's going to take a long time because we're going to live with low interest rates for the long term. Central banks are forced into that corner because of COVID.
You are in the board of ABB since many years, and
yes.
Now in November you will launch a new strategy for the upcoming 10 years. Could you mention anything about how do you work with the sustainability in that strategy?
We're going to have a detailed discussion in a few weeks' time, so the question is a bit early. But generally speaking, a company, even a heavy industrial company such as ABB, is really looking at this for the reasons that we've discussed here. They see opportunities. They see it's directed at their ABB's own employees, but also at large company consumers that are looking for partners that really addresses these questions. That it sort of comes into Paris. It comes back to that all individual companies want to contribute themselves. We see every company setting up their objectives. Even investors, which is only an owner of other companies, are setting up our objectives. And so I think we're at the beginning of a flood of demands. And ABB being one of many being affected of that, they have to address this question. And it's there.
Ola, or perhaps Robin, would like to assist as well. We see now that, we have an American election coming up, Biden versus Trump. We talk about the Green Deal at the European Union and so on. That is politics. How much would you value politics as a driver compared to market rationales? Oil price is low. You don't invest in oil anymore. Or the price of aluminium recycling is super high. Could you kind of balance the rationale of the market versus the politics and the influence and the impact from them?
Yeah, the legal structure today in Europe is unfortunately driving our industry. Unfortunately in the sense that I think we as an industry don't do enough. We keep up with regulations, so to say. There I think we have a collective responsibility to do much more. And then we discussed earlier also about how, so to say, of course Europe has come further in this sense. And then do we tweak our offering, whether it's Latin America or Asia? I think the important thing is that we offer sustainable solutions for really that hits the volume segments and not only as a premium, nice little niche, so to say, because otherwise we won't have a real impact, I think.
Same question goes to you, Jakob. And to you. So I start here. The balance between, the political drivers. Does it really matter who is in the White House when it comes to sustainability, or are there other drivers?
I think it makes a huge difference. As I started out saying, I think the challenge is how to get the individual citizen to really sort of focus on this question, not only with the flygskam or something like that, but and there you need leadership, a political leadership that says this is important, and 2 degrees Paris means this in our country, and we need to do this, this, and this. And you at the different companies have to take your responsibility, and you citizen have to do something. And my point is, it sounds really corny what I'm saying, but I think the point is that if we don't get more people truly engaged, not a lot will happen in reality, because at the end of the day, it's down to the citizen, the individual. And I think politics really drives that, and has a huge responsibility.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, it's you have to come from the bottom up and from the top down. You have to have leaders who lead by example about this issue. And if you have someone who doesn't support sustainability, doesn't enforce or try to or live that way, then well, why should I bother? You know, so I think you have to have this very much not only in terms of the regulation, the legal structure, but a political party that you feel like you have, you know, you can share the same values around sustainability with. So it's both the top down, but it's also very much the bottom up. How do you create this awareness? Because I think many people just don't understand the relationship between their behavior and for example, the 2 degrees. Oh, great, 2 degrees, exactly. But how does my behavior actually influence that? And I see that here today when we speak about sustainability, and many people think they're being sustainable and buying huger and huger cars, even though they're electric. So I think it is very much to be thought about. You have to take out the whole perspective and understand your impact and your environmental footprint.
And then, Fredrik, if we narrow down the perspective, the political perspective here, would it make a great difference for you if there is an EU directive how to standardize plastics? How to define what is different kinds of plastic?
I think it would help because as legislators you have a big responsibility to setting the scene. You talked before today about the demands and the regulation regarding recycled plastic in comparison to virgin plastic. You cannot push harder on the recycled materials than you do on virgin material. Then you will of course choose the virgin material. So you have to always follow the development of the products and the possibilities to develop new raw material sources. So you have to adapt at the same time as the companies adapt to this as legislators. So they have a very important role to make the scene.
Okay. We will start to wrap up, and I will give you the answers of the last question, the poll you had during the last break. And the question was, will increased use of circular materials be essential for your profitability in the coming years? And let's see. Yeah, most of you answered yes, 82%, 0.8, 83.1. I would have been disappointed if that hadn't been the case. So, and only 6.6 answers actually no. It's not a very unexpected result, considering you are an audience interested in sustainability. Well, that's for sure. So, thank you, Jakob Wallenberg. Thank you, Robin Teigland. Thank you, Ola Nilsson and Fredrik.
Yes.
What is you're the host today?
Yes,
Managing
I would like to
Director
thank
of
you,
Stena
Eva,
Recycling,
for excellent moderating of this event. And I would also like to say that even though we have COVID around us, this was an excellent opportunity to do this as a digital event. Last year we had a physical event, and we are already in the planning phase of next event coming summer. Hopefully, we can meet in physical, because you have some advantages meeting physical then. So I hope we can meet physical. I take away many learnings from today, but I think you, Robin, mentioned curiosity. Keep that up and collaborate, and we will find solutions step by step. So that's why I say thank you to all.
I don't know whether the moderator is to say what is the to take away, but to me it was so fun to see the hands-on example. I mean, they were they are so extremely concrete and promising, and that's what the whole thing is about. The small work with different parts, how to recycle a vacuum cleaner. I mean, that's also a part of this revolution. So that was so hopefully we'll meet again in June, right, Fredrik? At the third then Circular Initiative. And thank you for today.